Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics, and today's video is going to be on the topic of having a character run out at you, running towards you, the viewer. So it's kind of a foreshortening pose. I had this question a while ago and I forgot to address it. So I was kind of digging through some of the old videos I was supposed to do in response to people, and this is one of them. So I'm using Sketchbook Pro 7. Um, Really great software for drawing comics and drawing pretty much anything. But what I do when I draw a foreshortened pose, I'll kind of explain this as I do it to hopefully help you better understand um, sketching out, foreshortening, which can be a little bit tricky at times. What I'll do is I'll do a real rough version of what I picture, the character doing. In this case, running at the camera. The torso has to be tilted pretty heavy here, so I'll draw that kind of recessed into space. Now, if I have a problem drawing something like this, I'll take it to its simplest form, which would be drawing like a straight up front shot or profile, and I'll draw that to the side. I've drawn this pose quite a bit, so I can pretty much, block it out of memory. Um, you see I'm still throwing in some of the basic mannequin structure lines, and then I quickly go to drawing some form around it, and keeping in mind to if something's coming at the camera, it's got to be shorter, obviously by a lot, in a foreshortened pose. But then also it has to be larger if it's closer to the viewer also. So, like this arm, the width of the bicep here should be larger than it is here because this arm is further back. So just little things like that to kind of make it a little bit more believable. Um, Now what I'll do here is have this leg coming forward. You always do the opposite kind of thing where if this arm's forward, his right arm's forward, then his left leg is forward for balance. Legs, I just kind of draw these kind of I don't know, wedge, kind of rounded shapes like that. I think the trickiest thing about getting the legs right a lot of times is the way that they're in position to one another, not so much. I mean, you got proportion, which is a big thing, but the position that they are in conjunction with each other, and makes a big difference on making the form look believable. So now this being more of an animated comic book style, I tend to exaggerate and you know let the forms be a little bit more free flowing and animated, I guess. A tricky part is right here. I used to do this thing where I draw the foot kind of up like that, and it looks kind of silly. It's easy to do. It's kind of like a cheater uh, way to draw the leg coming at you. It doesn't look very realistic. One that I think looks a little bit more believable is where you try to draw the foot just tipping up just a little bit, the bottom part of the front toes, and then the way that it curls back and connects to the heel or whatever. Uh, and that's almost a little too flat, so it looks like he's flat-footed, and so I'd raise it up a little bit more, but it's a little bit more believable than the other extreme version I just showed you. So it kind of mix between the two, and obviously just like if you pointed the foot down too much like this, or this is way too much, but now it looks like he's more like in a flying pose, and his foot wouldn't be up like that. So, oops, let's get rid of that. How many Control Z's do I have? Just enough. Okay. So yeah, like I said, I want to get like a happy medium between those two. Let me draw this leg back, and maybe you see some of the foot, maybe not. A lot of guys, you'll see they just draw the leg and then no foot. It makes it look like the foot's back here in space somewhere, um, and it's less you got to draw. So let's see if I can get this foot right. So what I would generally do is the foot wedges back down, and then depending on the amount that it's pointed back up, it's going to come over to this side of the line more, and you begin to see more of the heel. So something like that. And you can see when I struggle with stuff, my lines get very thick and crude. It's almost like I pull out a crayon and you know recess, regress back into childhood. Start drawing with a big old crayon. Okay, something like that. That's a little crude still, but I can work on it some few layers, and maybe the toe wouldn't be pointed this far out like that. But for whatever, we'll pretend that that's okay. I do know that the toe generally matches the knee, so you can look down at your own leg, and as you move your foot back and forth, you turn your knee or rotate your leg, your point of your foot and the knee kind of go together. So same thing with the thumb and the bicep. All right, so there's our running pose forward. Now I want to break it down and try to explain it a little bit more and make it easier for you, uh, so that you can do this on your own. Obviously, try to draw along here, but the way that I would break it down to make it easier to understand is first practice drawing your character in the easiest possible form. That would be maybe straight at you, or for me it's profiles. Profiles are my easiest component to draw. But we'll say, straightforward like this. So you got your chest, your sternum, your, stomach muscles, your shoulders, blah, blah, blah. So all I have to picture here is that, that this form is tilting forward. So now this shape here that we have for the chest and the sternum would now look more like, if I was to tilt that down using this as my reference, I'm just drawing it, but I'm looking back and forth to that other shape, and I would picture that that shape would look something like this if we were to tilt it downward. A good way to practice stuff like this is to actually take, like a glass or a cup, and you know that when you draw the cup from a forward, perspective, it's like this, but the more you turn it, the cup is going to start to look more and more like this. And if you study that over and over again, and not just cups, obviously, a lot more advanced shapes, uh, but then also from the same direction, or I'm sorry, the opposite direction, I guess, you start breaking down your complex shapes with smaller basic shapes. You kind of meet in the middle, and that's where you get to understand these forms, and it becomes more simplified. So I would practice doing that. Now, another thing to get a feel for the leg, and you see how I struggled with the foot there a little bit. That being a more complex shape to me, I would practice taking like the leg shapes, something like this or whatever. That's a upper part of a leg to me. Uh, Real quick, so there's our upper part of our there's the leg. I just kind of keep going, but there's the upper part of the leg. So then again, practicing to turn that, and you should practice drawing this leg shape in every pose imaginable, because in comics, that's very much what you're going to have to do in any kind of drawing, but definitely comics. You're going to have these leg positions, all over the place. Because these characters are kicking, punching, doing all this crazy stuff. So you got to be able to tilt and turn. You can't have one leg pose, is what I'm getting at. You do that, and your story, your comic book's going to quickly look pretty darn boring. If everybody's just standing there flexing the entire time, that's going to be a bit ridiculous. So you have to practice parts like this, and you see how I like struggled here. This kneecap should be further back. Basically, this muscle, even when it's relaxed, sits right around the knee. So taking note of little things like that will help you draw this form over here, and other forms like it. So you should practice, you know, a relaxed leg, um, off to a side, the leg coming forward. Like one of the tricky ones is when somebody's sitting in a chair and the leg's coming right out to the camera. You've got the knee right here, we'll say. You got this little uh, skin or whatever. I don't know if that's skin or bone. I think it's a bone actually. Underneath, it's probably the bone, the way the bones connect to the knee or something. But you get this little pudge under the knee like that. Then it fades down and away. You know, Here's the kneecap. We'll say it recesses back a little bit like that. You've got the side of the knee like so. Then you've got the leg muscles that go like this, like this. One's up front like this. I think this one curls around. I'm not looking at my anatomy right now, so um, And then from there, you try to, you know, kind of pull this all together, you know, so you know that this muscle sits on the knee, you know that this one sits usually on top of the leg, but because you got to keep in mind that it's recessing back into space and it's fitting this, you know, position of sitting in a chair and the hips being here, you know, so you have to kind of force those all into perspective. I'll erase some of these construction lines, see if you can see what I'm talking about. And then now, so he's sitting in the chair and, you know, the sternum upper body is all sitting upright. Now it goes back into regular drawing perspective. But it's making that forced perspective work, you know, without making it look improper. And this looks very straight. You know, I don't imagine anybody would sit in a chair like that and you'd get a very straight perspective of the knee going back to the pelvic there, connecting that way. But I'm trying to explain more of the process and the way that you would understand the dynamics of it and break those shapes down. So there it is. I just wanted to give you another little tidbit, and that's the running perspective coming at you. So work on that, try to draw that, and yeah, hopefully it works out for you. And this has taught you something. If it has, be sure to let me know. Also, let me know what you'd like to see in the future. I do love the back and forth. You know, to know what works for you guys and what you're enjoying and what I can do better. So be sure to drop the comments in there, like and subscribe. As always, check out Blackstone Eternal on Indie Planet. Love the support. Thanks for watching. Keep drawing. Keep having fun. Bye bye.